Welcome to online CET class. Today we will discuss synopsis of ray optics. So in this, to start with, we have reflection and refraction at the plane surface. So first thing, reflection of light is a phenomena of bouncing back of light into the medium from which it is incidented when it strikes a surface. So reflection is common for any wave, not only for light. So some of the facts about light are: light travels in free space, that is vacuum, with a velocity 3 into 10 to the power 8 meter per second. It is highest for any object or any wave. Wavelength range of light, visible light, that is visible to human eye, is about 4000 to 7000 angstrom. The frequency range is from 10 to the power 14 hertz to 10 to the power 15 hertz. So light belongs to electromagnetic spectrum. Then if you consider reflection from a plane mirror, suppose if a ray of light is incidented on the plane mirror, let us say this is IO is incidented ray, then it gets reflected, OR is reflected ray. At the point of incidence O, you can draw normal to the surface. Then the angle between incident ray and normal is called angle of incidence. Angle between reflected ray and normal is called angle of reflection. Then if mirror wouldn't have been there, then light would have traveled along this direction. Let me call it as R dash. Then the angle between the reflected ray and the undeviated incident ray, this angle we call it as angle of deviation. So these are some of the terms associated with reflection at a plane mirror. Then coming to laws of reflection. So the first law is incident ray, reflected ray and normal to the surface. At the point of incidence, they all lie in same plane. Then angle of incidence is equal to angle of reflection. Remember one thing, both are measured with respect to normal, not with respect to mirror. Angle of deviation produced by mirror is given by 180 degree minus 2i or 180 degree minus 2r, because I is equal to r, that is law of reflection. In the case of normal incidence, suppose if this is the mirror and the light is incidented this way, then it simply reflects back along the same direction. It bounces off from the surface in the same direction. So in this case, I is equal to 0 and r is also equal to 0. When the mirror is rotated through an angle theta, keeping the incident ray direction constant, then reflected ray rotates through an angle 2 theta. So in order to understand this, let us consider this is a plane mirror. Now this is incident ray and let's say this is reflected ray. So this is how it was behaving. Let us say at the point of incidence, I'll draw normal. Now let us say IO is incident ray, ON is normal and OR is reflected ray. Now keeping the incident ray direction as it is, if the mirror is rotated to this position through an angle theta. So now I am rotating the mirror in this direction, this is clockwise direction. Then what happens? The normal to the surface also gets rotated. So this will be new normal in dash. So this also rotates through an angle theta. This angle is theta, this is theta, this is also theta. Now reflected ray rotates through an angle 2 theta. So this let it be r dash. So the new reflected ray and old reflected ray are inclined at an angle 2 theta. This is what the result is. This is one of the important results in the case of plane mirror. Moving further, the image formed by plane mirror is always virtual because it is formed behind the mirror, erect, and it is laterally inverted. That means left-right interchange. So in standing in front of the mirror, if you raise your right hand, the image will raise its left hand. So there will be lateral inversion, but it is erect. Vertically it is erect. Then the size of the image is same as the size of the object. Then image distance and object distance will be equal. Suppose if the object is placed in front of a plane mirror, a person is standing at a distance x, let us say, then the image of the person will also be at a distance x from the mirror. So this is object distance, this is image distance. Both of them will be equal. The minimum size of the plane mirror required to observe full size of the person, full size image of the person, it is equal to half of the height of the person. Suppose if person's height is h, then you need a mirror of height h by 2. For a 6 feet person, you need 3 feet tall mirror to see his full image. Minimum height is half of the height of the person. The radius of curvature of plane mirror is always infinity. So for any plane surface, radius of curvature is infinite. Moving further, coming to multiple reflection. So when two mirrors are kept inclined at an angle theta, then number of images formed is given by 360 by theta minus 1, where 360 by theta if it is even. If it is odd, 360 by theta is odd, then it will be 360 by theta only. So here the object must be placed symmetrically between the two mirrors. If object is placed symmetrically between the two mirrors, inclined at an angle theta, then number of images formed is given by 360 by theta minus 1 if 360 by theta is even, just 360 by theta if it is odd. So number of images must be always odd. If the object is not placed symmetrically, then it is asymmetrically placed, the number of images formed is 360 by theta. So if theta is equal to 0, that means two mirrors are parallel, then number of images formed will be infinite. Then if the angle theta is 90 degree, number of images formed will be 3. So if it is 90, 360 by 90 will be 4. 4 is even, so we have to subtract 1, it should be 3. If theta is equal to 180 degree, that means the two mirrors are along the same line, then n is equal to 1. It will form a single image only. So if 360 by theta is odd and the object is asymmetrically placed between the two mirrors, then n is equal to 360 by theta. In the case of two parallel mirrors, theta is equal to 0 and n is equal to infinity, just like what we have seen. Then coming to properties of the images, the virtual image formed by the plane mirror is always behind the mirror. So since it is behind the mirror only, we call it as virtual image. Then net deviation produced by two mirrors inclined at an angle theta is d is equal to 360 minus 2 theta, whereas deviation produced by single mirror is 180 minus 2 theta. Here it is 360 minus 2 theta. If an object shifts through distance y towards the mirror, if a person standing in front of the mirror moves towards the mirror through a distance y, then image shifts through the same distance y towards the mirror. See, if the person standing moves towards the mirror, image also moves towards the mirror. That means if this is the mirror, if object is here, object moves through a distance y, then image originally which was here, this also approaches. If the mirror is shifted through a distance x towards the stationary object, image shifts through a distance 2x towards the object. See, in this case, observer is not moving or object is not moving, mirror is only moved to new position. So if this distance is x, then originally if the image is here, now it comes to this position. So if this distance is x, this distance will be 2x. Next, when a person moves towards a mirror with a velocity v, his image approaches the mirror with the same velocity v, but he observes his image as if it is approaching him with velocity 2v. So if there is a mirror here, if a person standing starts running towards the mirror with velocity v, then image also moves with respect to mirror with velocity v only. But relative velocity between image and object will be, so both are approaching each other, so it will be v plus v, that will be 2v. So move on to next one. When the mirror moves towards the person at rest with a velocity v, then his image approaches the mirror with velocity v. He observes it with velocity 2v. Then coming to spherical mirrors. So we have two kinds of spherical mirrors. One is concave mirror, other is convex mirror. So concave mirror is converging mirror. Whenever parallel beam of light falls on it, then it converges the rays to a point. That's why it is called converging mirror. Convex mirror is a diverging mirror. So this is the behavior of concave mirror. Concave mirror image formation is like this. So it forms both real and virtual images. So real image can be diminished, it can be magnified, but remember, real image is always inverted in any case. Any case you take, real image is always inverted and virtual image is always erect. So concave mirror produces virtual magnified image only. So best example for this is dentist mirror. So which produces magnified virtual image. The minimum distance between object and real image is 0. So this case is when object distance is equal to 2f for concave mirror. So image and object will coincide. So they are used as reflectors in solar cookers and dentist mirror and eye specialists, and also as shaving mirrors and in reflecting telescopes of some models. So magnifying power is less than 1 or equal to 1 or greater than 1. It can produce diminished image, same size image or enlarged image. All the three are possible. Coming to convex mirror, so image formation is like this. So it produces always virtual image. Virtual image produced by convex mirror is always diminished. So it is always of small size than that of the object. The image formed by convex mirror is always virtual, erect and diminished for any position of the object. Magnification is always less than 1 because it is diminished image. Then they are used as the rear view mirrors in vehicles, that is driving mirrors. Then parabolic mirrors are used in searchlights. This is not a spherical mirror. Parabolic mirror is not a spherical mirror. So parabolic reflectors, they are used in headlights, searchlights and also in reflecting telescopes. The maximum distance between image and the mirror is equal to its focal length. This is when the object is at infinity. Now coming to sign conventions to be followed while solving problems with respect to spherical mirrors. So we call them as Cartesian sign conventions. So first thing, all the distances are measured from the pole which are measured along the principal axis. So starting point must be pole. Distances which are measured in the direction of incident light are positive, and distances measured in the direction opposite to incident light, they are taken as negative. Then distances above principal axis. So if you are finding any distance perpendicular to principal axis, then you should measure it from principal axis. So distances measured above principal axis are taken as positive, below principal axis is negative. So this reduces to Cartesian sign convention. Then some of the formula relevant to spherical mirrors. So radius of curvature r is equal to 2 times the focal length, r is equal to 2f. Then mirror formula, that is 1 by v plus 1 by u is equal to 1 by f, or f is equal to 2r, you can write it as 2 by r. So this is mirror equation or mirror formula. Then the linear magnification produced is minus v by u, or it can be f by v, f minus v divided by f, or f divided by f minus u. Then aerial magnification is area of image divided by area of object. Then some of the known results out of calculation are, if the object distance is x from the focus of the concave mirror and its real image is at a distance y from the other focus, then the focal length of the mirror is given by f is equal to root of xy, where x and y are distance of real object and real image from the focus of the concave mirror. So this is called Newton's formula. This can be used as a standard result. Remember one thing here, distances are measured from focus, not from the pole. Then moving on to refraction through plane surface. So refraction is the phenomena where there is change in the speed of light when light travels from one medium to another medium. So for oblique incidence, there will be change in direction also. So the reason for refraction is change in optical density, that means change in speed of light. So we say the medium is optically denser if speed of light is smaller. We say it is rarer if speed of light is larger. So these words are relative, larger, smaller, so compared to the other medium. Now during refraction at a plane surface, light ray bends towards the normal when it travels from rarer to denser medium, and it bends away from normal when it travels from denser to rarer medium. So coming to laws of refraction, so this is called Snell's law. So it is the refractive index of medium 2 with respect to medium 1 is sin I by sin r, where I is angle of incidence and r is angle of refraction, or it can be written as n2 by n1, or it can also be written as v1 by v2. Then angle of deviation during refraction is I minus r when light is traveling from rarer medium to denser medium. See, if it is traveling from rarer to denser medium, then light bends towards the normal. This is I, this is r. So now deviation is this. So deviation d is equal to I minus r in this case. Suppose if the light is traveling from denser to rarer medium, now what happens? This would have been undeviated path. It goes away from normal. So this angle is r, this angle is I, and this is deviation. Deviation will be r minus I. Then absolute refractive index of a medium is defined as the ratio of c by v, where c is speed of light in vacuum and v is speed of light in the medium. So Snell's law can also be written as n1 sin I is equal to n2 sin r. Remember, n1 is the refractive index of the medium in which angle of incidence exists. That means incident ray exists. And n2 is the refractive index of the medium in which the refracted ray exists. That is how we have to remember this. Then when there is oblique incidence of light on a parallel sided glass slab, then what happens? The light undergoes what we call it as lateral shift. So the emergent ray and incident ray will be parallel to each other. This distance we call it as lateral shift. Lateral shift is given by t into sine of I minus r divided by cos r, where I is angle of incidence, r is angle of refraction, t is thickness of the glass slab. So shift is maximum when the angle of incidence is equal to 90 degree. Angle of incidence is 90 degree means it is not normal incidence. Light should be incidented along this line. It is grazing incidence. This is 90. Remember, angle of incidence is measured from normal, not from the surface. So this is a better diagram. This is incident ray, this is refracted ray, this is emergent ray. Now lateral shift is given by this. So lateral shift is given by t, this qr is equal to t secant r, so that is t by cos r into sine of I minus r. Yes. After lateral shift, next concept is normal shift. When the object in one medium is seen from another medium, it is observed from another medium almost along the normal direction, then the position of the object appears to be shifted along the normal, either towards or away from the observer. So that phenomena we call it as normal shift. So suppose if there is a fish in the pond and if a man is observing it, then the fish appears to be nearer to him. If there is a coin at the bottom of the pond, it appears to be raised. That is due to normal shift. So this is the diagram representing the normal shift. So if the object is here, light from the object goes this way, it undergoes refraction, it goes this way. But for the observer observing from here, it appears to be somewhere here. So actually the position of the object is at a depth equal to t. But for the person observing from here, he will see it to be at this much depth. So there will be this much shift. So this shift we call it as normal shift. Shift from original position to the apparent position. So in this case you can prove that refractive index of denser medium as real depth divided by apparent depth. Real depth is AO, apparent depth is IO. So it can be T divided by apparent depth is AI. This is apparent depth. So real depth by apparent depth will give you refractive index. Or you can also prove that normal shift is equal to T into 1 minus 1 by N. See, this IO is normal shift. AI is apparent depth. AO is real depth. Moving on to next slide. An object in a rarer medium appears far away as seen from a denser medium. Suppose if the observer is in denser medium and object is in rarer medium, then it appears farther. But if the object is in denser medium and observer is in rarer medium, it appears nearer. So for example, if a fish is observing a bird in air, then the bird appears farther. But for the bird observing the fish, fish appears nearer. So in that case, the refractive index will be apparent depth by real depth, not real depth by apparent depth. In any case, you will be always measuring refractive index of denser medium only. Whether you are using real depth by apparent depth or apparent depth by real depth, you are always using always calculating the refractive index of denser medium. Then normal shift is given by real depth minus apparent depth when object is in denser medium. So same thing will be equal to apparent depth minus real depth when object is in rarer medium. So this will be the situation. Then suppose if there are multiple media, let us say there is a glass slab, below that the object is placed, above that there is a very thin beaker in which water is filled, above that oil is filled. Then you look through all the media, then there will be several shifts due to several media. Then total apparent depth will be equal to total real depth divided by refractive index. Total normal shift will be equal to sum of the individual shifts. Then coming to consequences of refraction. So due to refraction, coin at the bottom of the beaker appears to be raised. This is due to normal shift. Then a stick kept in water appears to be bent and short when immersed obliquely in water. This is due to lateral shift. Then bottom of the tank appears to be concave. This is again due to normal shift. Then atmosphere is also a medium. Its refractive index keeps changing due to change in density. So because of this atmospheric diffraction, there will be twinkling of stars. So this is called atmospheric haze. Atmosphere is a dynamic medium, so its refractive index keeps changing. So particles in it keep moving. So because of that, it causes twinkling of stars. Then sun is seen before sunrise and still after sunset. So because of this, there will be 4 minutes increase in the daytime. So this also happens due to atmospheric refraction. This is what we call it as advanced sunrise and delayed sunset. This happens due to atmospheric refraction. Then sun appears bigger during sunset and sunrise, somewhat oval in size, you'll see, that is also due to atmospheric refraction. In the absence of atmosphere, sky will be dark because there will be no scattering, so refraction has nothing to do with this, but there will be no scattering. And duration of day would have been decreased by 4 minutes. Then coming to concept of total internal reflection. So for total internal reflection to take place, there are two conditions to be satisfied. First thing, light must be traveling from denser to rarer medium. Second thing, angle of incidence in the denser medium must be greater than critical angle for the given pair of media. So this happens when light tends to travel from denser medium to rarer medium. So if this angle of incidence is equal to critical angle, then refracted ray just grazes the interface separating the two media. If it is increased further, if it is incidented this way, it reflects back. So this is what we call it as total internal reflection. If this angle is theta, this angle will also be theta. So if C is the critical angle for the pair of media, that means angle of incidence for which R is equal to 90 degree, then you can show that refractive index of denser medium with respect to rarer medium is equal to 1 by sin C. So where C is critical angle. The critical angle for a given pair of media depends on both the media on either side, and also it depends on wavelength of light, and also it depends on temperature. Critical angle is directly proportional to temperature. For a fish inside water, the outside world appears to be enclosed in a cone of angle 2C, where C is the critical angle. So this will be the situation. So if there is a fish here, then light ray from this, or light that is coming out from outside world, will enter. The last ray that comes in will be along the grazing incidence, then it bends, it undergoes refraction. So this angle will be equal to critical angle. This is critical angle, so this will be equal to critical angle. So this is the last ray that can enter inside. So it generates a cone at the surface it encloses a circle. So the fish inside water will be able to see this entire outside world confined to this particular cone. So this angle will be equal to 2C. And you can prove that the radius of the circular disc, or radius of this circle at the end of the cone is equal to R is equal to H tan C, that is equal to H divided by N square minus 1, where N is refractive index of the denser medium. In this case it is water. H is depth of the fish. Then consequences of total internal reflection. Air bubble inside water appears shining due to TIR, total internal reflection. The brightness of diamond, brilliance of diamond is due to total internal reflection. Then the mirages that are formed in deserts, they are due to refraction and total internal reflection. So in the cold countries, on hot surface you will see mirage. So you will have reverse atmospheric condition in cold countries. There you will see something called looming. Looming in the case. So in the case of mirage, you will see inverted image of the tree which is shaking below the actual tree. But in the case of looming, this happens near the seashore. If you are observing a boat, due to foggy conditions, due to too cold conditions, you will not be able to see the ship. So that ship, you will see it floating in air. That phenomena we call it as looming. So it will be exactly the reverse atmospheric condition. See, in the case of mirage, if there is a tree here, if the observer is here, if you remember, the light travels along this path, the observer will see the image somewhere here. So this will be inferior mirage. In the case of looming, if there is a ship here, then if the observer is on the seashore, so due to cold conditions, you cannot see direct image of the ship. So what you will see is light travels in this direction. See, here it is lowered, here it is elevated. So instead of seeing the ship here, you'll be able to see the ship somewhere here, and that too you'll see inverted image of the ship that is floating in air. So this is what you see. This is called looming. Then optical fibers work on the phenomena of total internal reflection. This is technological application of total internal reflection. So that is all about reflection and refraction. Now we will proceed to the refraction through prism. So when white light passes through a prism, it splits into its constituent colors. That is what we call it as dispersion of light. So a device which is used for producing dispersion is called prism. In general, prism is a optical medium which is bound by at least one pair of non-parallel refracting surfaces. So prism is an optical medium bound by at least one pair of non-parallel refracting surfaces. So it need not be triangular in cross section, but the general purpose laboratory prism that you have seen, that is triangular in shape, so it's called triangular prism. Now when you place the prism in minimum deviation position, then at that case the angle of incidence and angle of emergence will be equal to each other. We call it as I. Angle of refraction at the first phase, angle of the refraction at the second phase, both are equal to 1, equal to each other. Then refractive index of the prism at minimum deviation condition only is sin of A plus D minimum by 2 divided by sin of A by 2, where A is angle of the prism. Now at minimum deviation position, refracted ray inside the prism will be parallel to the base of the prism. So at minimum deviation position, if you take the triangular prism, then if it is at minimum deviation, this refracted ray, see this is IO, or let's say this is RE. So this ray will be parallel to base of the prism. So this is I1, this is R1. Here if I draw normal, this will be R2, this will be I2. So at minimum deviation, this angle will be equal, this angle will be equal. Deviation produced by the prism is given by I1 plus I2 minus A, and angle of the prism will be equal to R1 plus R2. So at minimum deviation, D is equal to 2I minus A. Or from this you can solve for I is equal to A plus D minimum divided by 2. This is only at minimum deviation. Then if light ray is incident normally on one of the face of the prism and emerges just grazing the second face like this, then this angle of incidence should be equal to critical angle. So if it is just grazing the surface, it is grazing emergence. So in this case I1 and R1 will be equal to 0, I2 is equal to 90, R2 is equal to C. Now we know that R1 plus R2 should be equal to C. So angle of the prism must be equal to critical angle. This is valid only when the light is incidented normal to the surface. Then from critical angle relation we know n is equal to 1 by sin C, the refractive index of material of the prism, that is equal to 1 by sin A, because C is equal to A in this case. Then angle of deviation produced is 90 minus C. Then the next case, if the light ray is incidented grazing the first phase and after refraction it grazes out from the second phase, that is grazing incidence, grazing emergence. So this kind of a situation. So it is grazing incidence, grazing emergence. I1 is equal to 90, I2 is equal to 90. So this is maximum deviation position, not minimum deviation, it is maximum deviation position. So in this case I1, R1 and R2, this should be R1, So R1 and R2 will be equal to C, I1 and I2 are equal to 90 degree. Then A is equal to 2C, angle of prism will be equal to twice the critical angle. So N is equal to 1 by sin C, that is 1 divided by sin of A by 2. Then further, deviation produced is 180 minus 2C. I told you this is maximum deviation position. Then limiting angle of incidence for this to happen should be sin inverse of N sin of A minus C, where A is angle of the prism, C is critical angle. Then refractive index is given by sin of A plus D by 2 divided by sin A by 2. Same equation holds good for maximum deviation also. Suppose if the prism is kept in a different medium. So if N1 is refractive index of surrounding and N2 is refractive index of prism, if prism material is denser than the surrounding medium, then refracted ray deviates towards the base. If prism material is rarer than the surrounding medium, then it deviates away from the base. Deviating towards the base means, so if light ray is incidented this way, it bends this way. This is towards base. Away from base means, if it is incidented this way, it goes this way. This is away from base. This is towards, this is away from base. So even this angle of minimum deviation is different for different colors. It is maximum for violet and minimum for red. Then deviation through 90 degree, if it is possible, that can be used in periscope. Deviation through 180 degree can be used in binoculars. So for this purpose, we make use of special kind of prisms, what we call it as total reflecting prisms. Then deviation in small angled prism, what we call it as thin prisms. So in the case of thin prism, angle of the prism will be less than 10 degree. Then deviation produced by the prism is given by N minus 1 into A, where A is angle of the prism, N is refractive index. So this is the relation. In this case, I1 will be equal to N times R1, I2 is equal to N times R2. Here the approximation is sin I is approximately equal to I, sin R is approximately equal to R. So sin I by sin R is I by R, that is equal to N. So this is how it will be. So I will be equal to NR. So that is what we have here. For second refraction, it should be R is equal to Ni. So that is all about prism. Now we'll move on to refraction through curved surfaces. So to start with, we have refraction formula. Suppose if you have a curved surface, a spherical refracting surface. For spherical refracting surface, if the object is placed somewhere here, it undergoes refraction, it forms image somewhere here. So in this case, this is image, this is object, let us say this is center of curvature. Then the formula for refraction through curved surface is given by NO by U plus Ni by V. This is negative, this is positive, that is equal to Ni minus NO by R. Easy way of remembering this is Ni by V minus NO by U is equal to Ni minus NO by R. So notice one thing, Ni is refractive index of image medium and this is image distance. This is object medium, object distance. So this is easy way to remember this formula. R is refractive index, radius of curvature of the refracting surface. Then power of refracting surface is N1 minus N0 divided by R. N1 is this medium, N0 is this medium. Then SI unit of power is diopter. Proceeding further, formation of images by convex lens. So lens is an optical medium which is bound by two surfaces. Out of the two surfaces, at least one of them is spherical or cylindrical. So if it is spherical, it is called spherical lens. In your syllabus only we have spherical lenses. So otherwise we have cylindrical lenses. So in case of spherical lens, the most commonly used are convex lens, concave lens, plano-convex and plano-concave lens. So if you consider a biconvex lens, then it always forms real images, and in some cases it forms virtual magnified image. Real image formed by convex lens can be diminished or it can be magnified. And remember, real image is always inverted and virtual image is always erect. Convex lens produces only virtual enlarged images. So that's why it is also used as magnifier glass, or what we call it as simple microscope. Now magnification produced by the convex lens is either equal to 1, or it can be less than 1, or it can be greater than 1. All the three can be possible. Minimum distance between the real object and its real image is 4f in the case of convex lens. In case of concave mirror, it was 0. Moving further, coming to concave lens, the image formed by concave lens is always virtual, erect and diminished in size, irrespective of the position of the object. Remember, concave lens and convex mirror are almost similar. The image formed is on the same side as that of the object in case of concave lens, whereas in case of convex lens it is on the other side of the object. The magnification is always less than 1 because it produces always diminished image. Maximum distance between the image and the concave lens is equal to f. That is when you get parallel beam of light incidented on it. This is for parallel beam of light, that means object distance is infinity. Now coming to the relation between object distance, image distance and focal length for lens. So it is given by 1 by f is equal to 1 by v minus 1 by u. In case of mirror it was 1 by v plus 1 by u. Here it is 1 by v minus 1 by u. You can simplify for f uv divided by u minus v. Linear magnification produced by lens is given by height of image divided by height of object. It is v by u. In case of mirror it was minus v by u. Comparison is important. The area of aerial magnification is given by area of image divided by area of object. It is having the same meaning as that of in the case of mirror. Then you can prove that magnification is f minus v divided by f, or f divided by u plus f. In case of mirror it was f minus u, here it is f plus u. If x and y are distance of real object and real image measured from the focus of a convex lens, remember this result is true only for convex lens, then f is equal to root of xy. It is similar to what we had in concave mirror. Now power of a lens is reciprocal of focal length. SI unit of power is diopter. So to measure power, you should always measure focal length in meters. Remember this will be useful for solving problems. So the focal length of the lens not only depends on the radius of curvature, it also depends on the material of the lens. So it is given by so-called lens maker's formula. So it is 1 by r is equal to n minus 1 into 1 by r1 plus 1 by r2. In fact, it should be minus 1 by r2. You have to use sign conventions for applying this formula. So if lens is in air medium, it is just n minus 1. If it is in some other medium, you should take n divided by refractive index of the medium minus 1 into 1 by r1 minus 1 by r2. That will give you 1 by f. This is your lens maker's formula. Suppose if you have combination of lenses kept in contact. Suppose if this is one lens, by sign convention, Cartesian sign convention, convex lens has positive focal length. So if this has focal length f1, this has focal length f2. They are kept coaxial, and if you are using parallel beam of light falling on it, or otherwise also. So if they are in contact, then the effective focal length is given by 1 by f is equal to 1 by f1 plus 1 by f2. If one of the lens is concave, then you have to replace it by minus f. So power of the lens, power of the combination will be sum of the individual powers when they are kept in contact. Suppose if they are separated by distance d, here is one lens, here is another lens. they are separated by distance d. Now the focal length of combination is given by 1 by f1 plus 1 by f2 minus 1 d divided by f1 f2, that is equal to 1 by f. So power of combination is P is equal to P1 plus P2 minus D into P1 P2. And remember one thing, this result is true only for parallel beam of light. This result is true only for parallel beam of light. So that is about combination of thin lenses kept in contact and separated by certain distance. Now coming to silvering of lenses. So if one of the faces of the lens is silvered, like this, so we have a plano-convex lens where the plane surface is silvered. So if this is the case, then here one surface which has the radius of curvature, so other surface has the radius of curvature infinite. So in this case, if f1 is the original focal length, then the final focal length behaves like a concave mirror of focal length r divided by 2 into n minus 1, where n is refractive index, that will be equal to f1 by 2, half of the original focal length. Then suppose if the curved surface is silvered, then the focal length of the mirror will be equal to r by 2 and focal length of the lens is f1. So in this case, the net focal length is given by r divided by 2n. Now in this case, if the convex lens if you take and one of the curved surface is silvered, then its focal length is given by r divided by 2 into 2n minus 1. So focal length of mirror surface will be equal to r by 2. So that is all about the lenses. Now moving to optical instruments. So optical instruments are the instruments which are used to see better, which helps us to see better. Sometimes they produce magnified images or sometimes they produce well resolved images. For that purpose, we'll make use of optical instruments. Remember, any optical instrument should be additional aid to eye. So without eye, there is no meaning for optical instrument. So examples are microscope, telescope, astronomical telescope, periscope, spectacles, etc. Now, the magnification produced by optical instrument, generally we measure it by angular magnification. It is angle subtended by image at the eye with the instrument and divided by angle subtended by object at the eye. It's not A, it should be I. So this ratio will give you the angular magnification. Now coming to simple microscope. Simple microscope is used to see small objects. So it will be a very simple instrument. It consists of a single convex lens of short focal length. So example for simple microscope is magnifying glass, and also in biology lab you will use simple microscope. So the ray diagram for simple microscope is like this. So we use a convex lens of short focal length and the object is held within F. We know very well that for convex lens, when object distance is less than focal length, then it produces virtual enlarged erect image. So this is the ray diagram for it. So here we can understand the magnification. So when you look through this lens, then this is the angle subtended by image at the eye. And if the lens is not there, if the object is kept at same distance, then this is the angle subtended. So beta by alpha will give you angular magnification, or what you call it as magnifying power. So for comparing these two, we should keep image and the object at the same distance from the eye. Image and object at the same distance from the eye. So the magnification will be maximum when final image is formed at least distance of distinct vision D. For normal eye, D is equal to 25 centimeter. So this is also called as near point. Proceeding further, if magnification is measured when the image is at least distance of distinct vision, DDV, distance of distinct vision, then magnification is given by 1 plus d by f. If the final image is at infinity, then magnification is given by just d by f. This is magnification produced by the simple microscope. So the image formed by simple microscope, its position will be from 25 centimeter from the lens to infinity, somewhere in between. So magnification produced by simple microscope is small, that's why we go for compound microscope. So it is used for producing higher magnification. It is used to examine cells, bacteria and all. So it consists of two lenses, one we call it as objective, other we call it as eyepiece. So the distance between them can be altered. So in case of this, magnification produced is the product of individual magnifications. Whenever you have combination of lenses, so the magnification, net magnification of the combination will be product of individual magnifications. So ray diagram for compound microscope is like this. So whatever the image is formed by objective, we make sure that it produces real image. For that, the object distance for objective will be slightly greater than the focal length. Then it produces real image. Then real image produced by this image becomes object for this. Then this behaves like simple microscope. So it produces image at least distance of distinct vision. Now this will be beta, this will be your alpha. So beta by alpha produces magnification. So magnification produced by eye lens is same as that of simple microscope, that is 1 plus d by fe. So total magnification when final image is at least distance of distinct vision is magnification produced by objective into 1 plus d by fe, that is VO by UO. This is magnification produced by objective into 1 plus d by fe when final image is at least distance of distinct vision. If the final image is at infinity, then we will make some approximations also. VO by UO can be written as L by F, where L is length of the microscope, into 1 plus d by fe when the image is at least distance of distinct vision. If it is at infinity, image is at infinity, in that case it will be just d by fe. So it will be L by F into d by fe. Here there will be negative sign. Negative sign indicates that net magnification is negative. So final image is inverted with respect to the object. You can see from the diagram itself, final image is inverted. For this object, you get this image. Final image is inverted with respect to object. So length of compound microscope is VO plus UE, that is distance between the two lenses. So generally focal length of eyepiece will be greater than focal length of objective, and aperture of eyepiece will be greater than aperture of objective in case of microscope. Further, we'll move to telescope. Telescope is an optical instrument used to observe far off object, distant objects. So generally there are two types of telescopes. So one is astronomical telescope, used to observe the objects, astronomical objects like moon, star, planets and all. Another is terrestrial telescope, so which is used to see terrestrial objects. So coming to astronomical telescope, so they are used to see astronomical objects. So generally they are used at normal adjustment condition. Normal adjustment means final image will be at infinity. Final image will be at infinity. Now this also consists of two lenses, where objective is one which is nearer to object when it is facing the object. Eye lens is one which through which you are observing the object. So objective lens will have greater focal length than eyepiece. So it is exactly opposite of what we have in microscope. So This is ray diagram for astronomical telescope with normal adjustment. So here you can observe one thing, aperture of objective is larger than aperture of eyepiece. So light from the object at infinity is made to fall on the objective, then it forms a real image. This real image becomes object for this. We'll adjust such that the distance between the intermediate image and the eyepiece will be equal to focal length of eyepiece. Then final image will be at infinity. When this is the case, eye is least strained. So eye is least strained at normal adjustment. That's why we use normal adjustment condition. Magnification that is produced by telescope is given by FO by FE, where FO is focal length of objective, FE is focal length of eyepiece. Length of the telescope under normal adjustment will be FO plus FE. You can observe from this. See, this is a convex lens. When light comes from infinity, image will be formed at focal plane. So this distance will be equal to focal length of objective, and this distance we adjust it such that final image is at infinity, so it will be focal length of eyepiece. So if you add these two, if you add this and this, you will get length of the telescope. Then next thing is reflecting telescope. In case of reflecting telescope, instead of objective lens, we make use of a parabolic mirror. So light from the object enters the parabolic reflecting mirror, and since it is coming from infinity, so we will get a parallel beam. After reflection, it is supposed to converge at this point. It is supposed to form image at this point, but before it converges on the principal axis, we will introduce a concave mirror, convex mirror. So this is a secondary mirror. So when it gets reflected from this, it forms image here. Before it forms image, we will introduce a eyepiece through which you can see the image of the object. So this is secondary mirror, this is primary mirror, that is objective mirror. This will be convex mirror. Notice one thing, is this is the only case where convex mirror produces the converging beam and it produces real image, because converging beam is falling on it. If a converging beam falls on it, then plane mirror or the convex mirror produces real image. So this kind of a telescope we call it as Cassegrain telescope. So magnifying power of Cassegrain telescope is given by FO by FE. So it has its own advantages. The image quality will be better in case of reflecting telescope rather than in the conventional refracting telescope. So that is used for astronomical purposes. So that completes discussion on ray optics. Thank you.